Hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video. And in today's video, I'll be doing part 3 on how to script on Roblox. In today's video, we'll be learning about functions. Now, what is a function? Well, I think of functions as a set of code that whenever you call its parent, it'll do what the set whatever is inside, it'll do it. As you can see in our example here, how to use a function is pretty simple. Using the keyword function, and then you can use whatever name you want for your function, but whatever this is named for, I recommend naming it for whatever the function is going to be about. And then we have two brackets. Now these two brackets are necessary because it shows that this is a function, and that whenever you call it, we call it a function. Now, in this function, I have a simple print you call the function, and separated by this end, same as the if statement, where it has an end at the end. Everything inside here will run when this print function is called or launched. And down here, how you call a function is by simply using its name and then the two brackets. So, if I were to test this out, you called a function. Great. Now, functions can get more complicated than that. As you can see what I have down here, I have another function that does adding. So, let's cover this. In this function, using keyword function, I have a function named add. Now, you might be wondering, what are these values inside? Well, these values are something like I can send values. For example, when I call the function, I'm sending in two values, the candy and the chocolate. Okay? And when I call, and now having these inside the bracket separated by a comma for every new variable you add. So for example, if I wanted to add, for example, total sweets in there, I could. I just have to add another comma. But to use these, I have to receive them from the function. So I create variables here. As you can see, I have number 1, comma, number 2. You might be wondering, what is this? There's colon, and we have this keyword, number. Well, what this is basically is, it's like a way of saying the value that we'll receive will always be a number. So this number 1 will always be a value. It won't be a string, it won't be a table, it won't be an instance, it won't be anything else. It'll only be a number. And that allows us to have properties of numbers, but it's not as useful for numbers and strings. It's usually used for if you have an instance, like a part, or if you have a model, and you want to have certain values, and you want the game to always know that it's going to be a model. So in this case, I have two numbers that are being sent, so number 1, number 2, and I can use these as normal variables. But for your information, you can't use these variables anywhere else. As you can see, I can't find number 1 in the list of variables that I have. It's only allowed in the function that I have here. And as you can see here, I print out total sweets, which is just the number 1 plus number 2. So if I were to run the game, I print 122. So far, so good. That's usually it for using functions with values, but what about if we want to return values from a function? Well, in here, I have a simple function that is called check radius, and I check the radius of whatever I want here, and I'm calling it from here. Now, this might look a little interesting to you. You have a variable that's equal to a function. Well, how this works is this variable will be equal to whatever this function returns. Now, returning is something new that I'll cover right now, which is basically when you want to have the function return a value of something. In this case, I want to return a player or something. Then this radius value will be equal to that player. But in this case, I'm just returning a nil right now. So usually I have like an if statement that would say, oh, if the player is in distance, I would return, for example, return player. It's something like that. But in this case, I don't have the code for that, and we have return nil. Nil is just a way of saying nothing. So this variable, radius, will be equal to nil. And we could show that by testing it. Nil. So as you can see, by simply having the variable connect to a function, we can return anything we want. We can even change this to a set of numbers, like 1, 2, 3. And if we were to test it out, it'd print 1, 2, 3. Same as if you want to return a string. For example, go, go. As you can see, it prints go, go. So we can return almost anything we want. And we can set it up of ways like if we want to return the amount of candy the player has. So if the candy is greater than 10, then return you have a lot of candy. Now, if they don't have enough candy, we can just say else. We can return you have, I'll just say less candy than 10. We can put this away. And now, if I were to run, it should print out you have a lot of candy, which is true. I have 22 candy right now. And if I change this to 2, which is less than 10, it prints out you have less candy than 10. Awesome. Now, what if I wanted to call a function inside a function? See where I'm going with this? Well, let's look at this. If we open up the previous one, add, and we remove this quickly, we can just comment this out. I'll just say it's check radius thing I want to call add. Okay? And in this add, I want to add candy and chocolate. So this function, inside this function, we'll call a function add, getting these two candy, and we're gonna return, going back to the add function, we're gonna return total sweets. We don't have to return total sweets in this case because total sweets is a public variable that's set in the beginning. But because of that, we can just use it down here. So after we add, we can just return total sweets. Now, an important information they should know is that any variable that is identified here, like for example, if I have local goods, okay, I can't use this variable anywhere else other than this function. Same goes for other things like if statements and loops and etc. So I can't use goods anywhere else. I can only use it inside a function. So make sure you use wisely where you put your variables in, because sometimes variables could be wanted somewhere else, or something like that. But in this case, we have a variable publicly stated, so anything can use it. So in this case, we have add, which adds the total sweets, and then we're gonna return and check radius. We're gonna return total sweets, and just print the radius. This might seem confusing at first, but you get used to it over time. All we're basically doing is this variable is calling this check radius function, which might be misindicating. So we'll say total sweets count. So it'll make more sense. And then we say sweets. So now we have the sweets variable is calling this function called total sweets. And total sweets inside of this function is calling the add function, which is going to add candy and chocolate. And it'll set total sweets to whatever the sum of these two numbers. And over here, we return total sweets. And after returning, this sweets will be equal to total sweets. And then when we print sweets, we should get 102, which is correct because we have 102 candy. As stated above with 2 and 100. If we add those two, we get 102. That's basically it with functions. This might have been a little difficult tutorial to understand, but hopefully you'll understand it in the future. If you guys enjoy, comment down below, and have a good day. See ya.